Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Cube, and in this video we're going to look at the Tier 7 Tech Tree German heavy fighter, the Bf 109 Z Zwilling. Hello there, and here we are on the tarmac outside my hangar with the Bf 109 Z Zwilling. Now, Zwilling I understand means twin in German. Well, that's easy enough to understand, because this is, to all intents and purposes, a pair of Bf 109 fuselages strapped together by means of this wing and tailplane here. The aircraft never saw service. A prototype was built, it never flew, it was damaged in its hangar by the Allies in 1943 I believe, and this project for a high altitude fast fighter bomber with heavy weaponry was abandoned in 1944. And fairly much, the World of Warplanes team have stuck true to the original concept of the aircraft. It does feature heavy armament, it has a usable bomb, and it's quick. So what we'll do now, we're going to have a look at one of my familiar spreadsheets. There's lots of good stuff in there, but if you really don't want to look at that, then use a link below the video to skip ahead to another part of it. Here is the spreadsheet for all of the Tier 7 heavies in the game. There are 8 of them, including 4 premiums, as denoted by this gold colour behind the names. If you don't know how this spreadsheet works, use the link below to find a short instructional video, and that will tell you all that you need to know. Let's start with the gun armament, and straight away we see good news for the Zwilling. The rating of 42 is third best in class. The cumulative DPS of 720 is actually second best in class. We'll explain the difference in the rating a little bit later. What we have, when you have the top guns, are 4 30mm cannons. 2 of them fire through the twin hubs, and 2 of them are located in pods under the wings. That's why they're classified as O here, standing for outboard. And these deliver each 180 DPS, rate of fire of 240, but here is the first thing to note: relatively short range, only 1,890 feet. You glance across, you can see that plenty of the other aircraft in this comparison have ranges which are considerably longer. For instance, I'm circling the Tiger Cat's 2,493 feet here, and then we have a couple of sniper aircraft in the game as well, the Key 93 with 3,443 feet, and similarly for the Tupolev Tu-1. So bear that in mind. You don't necessarily want to go head on with things, but we'll also talk about the potency of the weapon later in the video as well. As far as the auto aim angle is concerned, it's 2, and that's the amount you can be off target by, and the game will still correct your aim so that you hit your target. 2 is fairly miserly. You can see some 3s over here, 2.5s. So what it means is that you need to be pointing your aircraft pretty accurately at your target. And the dispersion is not good either, and this is how the shells in this case spread out from the muzzle of the cannon. 0.6 is fairly poor for cannons, so again, these aren't desperately accurate weapons. Having said that, you can see in the comparison, apart from the massaging of the sniper cannons on the Key 93 and the Tupolev Tu-1 by the World of Warplanes team, you can see very small dispersion angles there. Most of the other guns in this game have fairly similar dispersion, in this comparison, have fairly similar dispersion. And the overheat time at 6 seconds is pretty decent. Now, let's just quickly explain why these are rated differently. The Tupolev Tu-1 has a rating of 44. This is something to do with the algorithm about the fact that it can hit at 3,443 feet. There's obviously a premium in the rating for that. Pushes the rating up, but as you can see, the DPS is way below that of the Zwilling. So, you should take away from that this is a pretty punchy aircraft. It has a single bomb, a 250 kilogram bomb. This was certainly enough to take out a gun emplacement. With K, you could probably take out a secondary target at something like a mining plant, although I suspect you'd have to wheel around and finish off parts of that target with your guns. That said, your main preoccupation in this game is not going to be attacking the ground when you compare it to something like, for instance, the Tiger Cat and the Hornet, which are designed to do a lot of groundwork. You can see that this is an incidental. Useful to flip a sector when you've got, say, less than 20 points or 20 points required to flip it, and you take out a gun emplacement with this bomb. Survivability is on the low side. This is fragile, bear that in mind. You may have heavy weaponry, but you're going to take damage, and plenty of these aircraft in this comparison can start doing damage to you before you can start doing damage to them. Be aware of your engagement and make sure you pick the terms of it, and don't let your enemy do that for you. That said, the fire resistance is high, and that's always useful, something I look for, because that often is the determining factor in whether I'm going to be able to mount a first aid dressing package, which I prefer, or whether I feel constrained to mount a fire extinguisher and possibly even use pilot skill points for fire resistance or firefighter skills. 360 hit points, as you can see. Some of the other aircraft, including the Tupolev Tu-1, have much more. 700 points there, very nearly double. Damage resistance, it's okay without being spectacular, but it is much of a muchness with the other heavies. Here's another plus factor for the aircraft. The airspeed is very good. The cruise speed is best in class, the rating is best in class. Just watch it, the boost max speed is good, but there are plenty of close competitors. This Ki 94, for instance. The Hornet, a little bit to my surprise, I find is a bit faster under boost. And the other thing that you really need to pay attention to, particularly if you're fleeing an enemy heavy, you only have 20 seconds of boost, and there are some aircraft here that have massive boosts. The VB-10 can pursue you all over the map, so can the Tupolev, and that can shoot you at long range as well, so be aware you've got to manage this boost very carefully. Maneuverability is so-so. It's kind of in the middle, at 39. Again, the VB-10 can outmaneuver you, so can the XP-75 Eagle, and these are aircraft which I'm going to talk about in a moment when I come on to altitude performance. But there are other aircraft which you can easily outmaneuver. The Ki 94-1 and the Tupolev Tu-1 are examples of that. You'll probably be able to outmaneuver a Hornet and a Tiger Cat as well. And again, we have excellent altitude performance. It's the best in class. There are some that approach it. That Eagle is close again, so is the Ki 93. But you can see here that you have the beginnings of a method for approaching all of these heavies, which we'll just talk about after we've looked at the worst in class figures and see if there's anything we can glean here. Okay, so we've already talked about ordnance. We talked about the survivability, and you can see lots of red there. The survivability figures are compressors. There's lots of red everywhere, but this is a more fragile heavy than most. There's that boost, worst in class, so bear that in mind. The maximum dive speed is actually compressed across all of the heavies. It's pretty good at 540. It's actually second best in class, but it's also, I think that's third worst in class. So you can see the other heavies have got similar diving capacities. There isn't anything really you're going to dive away from, apart from possibly the Tupolev Tu-1. The climbing rate, though, is well worth mentioning. Since we've just talked about dive speed, this is best in class. And some of the aircraft in this class are sluggards when it comes to climbing. The VB-10, you can see straight away that possibly you ought to climb away from one of those if it tries to attack you. And it's the same with the Tiger Cat, the Ki 93, the Hornet, and the Tupolev. You can see there an escape method against almost all of these heavies, with the possible exception of the Eagle. Maneuverability, you can see that it's actually very little red there, just the stall speed a little bit on the high side, but generally I find that I never pay attention to the stall speed. It's hardly ever a factor except when I'm in a turn fight in a turn fighter. And altitude performance, as you can see, lots of white there. So if I just quickly look at all of the heavies, how would you counter the Ki 94? You'd outmaneuver it. The Arsenal VB-10, climb away from it if it catches you at a disadvantage. Otherwise, be above it. The Eagle, again, you need to be careful with this aircraft. It's got relatively light DPS, but it's got a similar sort of speed and a similar sort of altitude performance. Be aware of this plane in the game, and make sure that you attack it when it's not expecting to be attacked, and don't let it latch onto you. Otherwise, at the very best, you're going to find it pursuing you all over the map and not letting go. Tiger Cat, outmaneuver it. Ki 93, probably outmaneuver it. DH3 Hornet, probably won't be fighting those too often, but you can outmaneuver it, but better still be above it. Tupolev Tu-1, outmaneuver it, but don't let it shoot you at distance. So what have we got here? Well, we've got a true air superiority heavy, which is a little bit fragile, but has very good weaponry, really good speed, and really good altitude performance. All the things I think you need to dominate the higher altitudes. And what we'll do now, we'll see how we've set this aircraft up to exploit those advantages. Here we are back on the tarmac with the Zwilling, and my aircraft is specialised, and that means I have all of the equipment and consumable slots available. When you first get this aircraft, of the 4 equipment slots, you can see that 2 will be locked, 1 on the cockpit and 1 on the engine. And something I want to draw your attention to here, there is no slot at any time on the airframe. And to me, that tends to suggest you should build this aircraft for speed rather than maneuverability, because you cannot mount a lightweight wing frame. On the consumables, there are 5 slots, and when you first get the aircraft, you're going to have 2 of those missing, 1 on the airframe and 1 on the engine. So let's pop this aircraft back into Specialist, and let's see what I've done with it. In the cockpit slot, I've chosen a gun sight. No surprises there. The alternative is cockpit armour, and this aircraft is fragile. Mounting cockpit armour is not going to give you much of a benefit, besides which we know the guns are not very accurate, so we want to do everything we can to improve their accuracy. And this is ultimate level equipment, and these are the bonus characteristics that I would choose. I wouldn't reassemble this equipment, even looking at it now. Sure, having the 2 criticals and the chance of causing a fire is nice, but this weaponry is so hard hitting, I think you're looking to destroy your targets rather than cripple them. Therefore, improve the accuracy with the 2 bonus characteristics there. And for good measure, I've picked off an extra 5% pilot's resistance to injuries, which makes me more comfortable with one of my consumable choices, which we'll discuss in a moment. Now, as I've mentioned, there is no airframe slot, so you can't mount either a polished skin or a lightweight wing frame, which would be my normal choices here. And the lightweight wing frame not being able to be mounted means that this biases my build towards speed, because I can do something with speed with 2 pieces of equipment, whereas I've only got the lightweight power unit to affect the maneuverability. So speed it is. And what have we done? Well, we have the engine boost mixture system. This is ultimate level equipment, and this of course will improve your performance under boost. 6.5% acceleration and 3.7% maximum speed at the moment, and as you can see, I've still got more calibration to come. Unfortunately, it affects your boost availability. We'll talk about that in a moment. As far as the bonus characteristics are concerned, we'll just get them back up. Normally, I would be looking to pick off the 2 characteristics for engine cooldown rate, so I could get my boost back just that much more quickly. However, there are aircraft at this tier and in this class with anything up to double the boost that you have, so having a longer boost is not going to help you. What you want is speed. So I would actually pick off the acceleration with boost activated here, probably the 1% minimum speed with boost, which isn't selected so far, and then either the 0.5% maximum speed with boost activated, which I have got selected at the moment, or just possibly the 5% boost availability figure. Bear in mind that what you want to do is fly away from your enemies quickly in case they have 20, 30, 40 seconds of boost and can stay with you. And we have an uprated engine here. Now, an uprated engine carries a risk of fire. However, the fire resistance of this aircraft is pretty good, so I'm comfortable with this choice. So 7% acceleration without boost and more cruise speed. As far as bonus characteristics are concerned here, again, probably on the principle that in this case we want more speed, more speed, more speed. 0.5% speed with boost activated, 1% acceleration without boost, and cruise speed there. There is another cruise speed down there. Would I pick that instead of one of the other characteristics? I might actually pick off the extra cruise speed and drop the acceleration without boost here. Definitely not going to pick the cooldown rate for the reasons I've just explained. 10% resistance to fire would be nice, but I'm going to eschew that in favour of trying to make this aircraft faster. And as it's all about destruction, I've decided, even though the range on these weapons is pretty poor, to go for ultimate gas-operated action and improve the DPS of the guns. And as far as bonus characteristics are concerned on this ultimate level piece of equipment, whoops, I've moved away again. There we go. Gone for cooldown rate, and I would probably go for the second cooldown rate there to get these weapons nice and cool as quickly as possible. And I'd probably then pick off the 5% accuracy of forward-firing armament. However, whilst those are the choices that I would make for standard equipment, that actually isn't my build. And those of you who've been watching carefully might be thinking, well, why has he got 6 tokens here? He's apparently going to change his equipment. And that's because these 2 slots aren't filled by these pieces of kit. Let me show you what I've actually done. As far as the uprated engine is concerned, we have special project equipment. Talk about that in a moment. And gas operated action, we have experimental equipment. And I do think this aircraft really bears these special pieces of kit really well. Now, you cannot get special project equipment at the moment. If you've got an experimental uprated engine, then that will do just as well. And what have we got here? Again, it's ultimate level. Bonus characteristics. Well, I've got 4% boost availability there. I've gone for 3% engine cooldown rate here. I'd probably take that off. And I would put on possibly another 8% boost availability. And then the 10% of tolerance to damage from fire. Well, that's useful to have. And this piece of equipment, being special project, just makes it better at its intended improvement characteristics. So the acceleration without boost is going to be much better, and so is the cruise speed, than a standard piece of equipment. So if you've got something experimental lying around, or even if you've got one of these special project equipment pieces lying around, can't get them anymore, as I say, then why not put it on this aircraft? It suits it well. And as for the gas operated action, again, it's ultimate level equipment. In fact, it's fully calibrated as well. I've worked on this, and I've increased the burst length, I've increased the damage, and I've increased the burst length again. Could have picked off cooldown rates, haven't decided to do so. What I want to do is maximize that hitting power and try and destroy something in a single pass. As far as consumables are concerned, if we just look at survivability, it is down to 51. But I still feel comfortable mounting a first aid dressing package, and that's important because if you're following something with a tail gunner and you lose your pilot, then you are going to struggle to actually hit it with these guns. So I'm comfortable with that choice. The aircraft isn't particularly manoeuvrable, but it's on a par with many of the other heavies, so it's worth mounting the pneumatic control assist. In a tight spot, you might just be able to outturn a heavy that otherwise would give you a lot of trouble. Unsurprisingly, I've got engine cooling mounted. That gives you 10 seconds of extra boost on top of any boost that you've got available, and you will be managing your boost to fly this aircraft effectively, so you should have some available at all times. And then it's really important not to lose this engine. Your main hope of escaping a pursuing heavy, in many cases, is to fly as quickly as possible away from it, and if you lose your engine, that's a disaster. So it's the restart bottle for me. If you are looking for out and out speed, then you could consider putting on improved fuel. I don't tend to discuss the gold premium consumables, simply because I expect most people won't be paying money for the privilege of using them. I certainly don't, even though I've got some free ones. And then finally, universal ammunition to improve the output, and it's a similar story here. I won't use any of the gold ammunition either, and I don't actually see the point in mounting incendiary or fragmentation ammunition. It's all about actually destroying the aircraft, so what you want is damage, damage, damage. Okay, so let's now discuss pilot skills. Let's open up the panel and see what we have here. Now, this aircraft is all about speed, and I'm going to assume that you will have a mounted speed equipment. If you've mounted manoeuvrability equipment, actually it doesn't change my choice. I'd still go for aerodynamics expert first. If you haven't mounted equipment at all because you can't afford it, this is not the right choice. Go for Engine Guru 1 instead. But assuming you have equipment, as I say, aerodynamics expert 1. Now you've got a competition here. You need both speed and accuracy on this aircraft, so you are going to have to prioritize these skills here, the Engine Guru 1 and the Marksman 1 skills. Which you choose is up to you. I'd probably go Marksman 1 and improve the accuracy, but I'd want Engine Guru 1 as quickly as possible. Then, with the next 2 skill points, I'd probably temporarily pick off Aerobatics Expert, and that's what I've done here. However, this pilot is due for reset. We'll do it. I've got the credits, fortunately. It's not cheap, as you can see, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to release all of the skill points. What are we going to do? Engine Guru 1, Marksman 1, Aerodynamics Expert. I've still got 3 points left over. Those are the ones that were formerly allocated to Eagle-Eyed and Aerobatics Expert. I'm going to put it on Engine Guru 2 and increase the speed of this aircraft even more. And we're going to follow the same logic again. We'll probably get one free skill point, put it on Eagle-Eyed. When another one comes along, we'll probably put it on Aerobatics Expert. When we've got another one, a third free skill point, we will take these 2 skills off again and put it on Marksman 2. And thereafter, you're into some very long grinds, but I'd probably be heading up to build up to Aerobatics Expert, and then when I've got 3 points free, I'd probably put on Resilience. Okay. What we'll do now, we'll see the effect of my build on the aircraft's base characteristics. Here's a spreadsheet showing the base characteristics of the Zwilling. That's in C and D there. And then in E and F, we see the effects of my build. Column G shows the difference in absolute numbers, and then the difference is expressed as a percentage in column H. And we can see there's an awful lot going on with the gun armament. There's lots of green here, and green indicates a good effect. What has happened here? Well, the base characteristic of the rating is 42. We've gone up to 50, which is an absolute difference of 8 and a 19% increase. So what has actually happened? Well, take a look at the DPS. We've gone up from 720 to 856, very nearly a 19% increase in its own right. This aircraft is mighty, particularly at close range in head-ons. There is only one other aircraft which you'd have to be careful about if it happens to have a similar build. The Key 94-1, a premium heavy at tier 7, can actually get up to an enormous 1100 DPS, but it flies like a brick. Why would you get head on with that? You just fly around it and shoot it down. Damage per second has increased by 19% as well to 214 from 180. The rate of fire, and this is due to the gas operated action, has increased to 272, which is a 13.2% increase. Dispersion angle has increased slightly. Let me explain that. There's a bonus characteristic on the gun side, 5% accuracy increase when you're firing at moving targets. I interpret that as increasing the auto-aim angle, the amount you can be off target before, and the game will still correct your aim to make sure you hit your target. And so, nice little increase there. But the main thing about the gun sight, of course, is improving accuracy. And how that works is to actually narrow your dispersion. So instead of your shells flying out at perhaps this kind of angle, it comes in a bit tighter, and therefore you're more accurate. And I've got this down to 0.51, which is a 15% increase in accuracy. And we've also, by use of the equipment that I've got on the aircraft, managed to increase the overheat time by 10% as well, which is handy to have. Of course, these are the same cannons here, so all the effects that you see on these cannons are going to apply to these ones. And this makes this aircraft devastating. I have built this aircraft for destruction. No effect on the ordnance. A trade-off here is that the fire resistance has been worsened by 20% down to 51. However, I still think that is a high enough figure to be able to live with, and therefore I've still mounted, for instance, the first aid dressing package. But be aware, you are more vulnerable to fires. Airspeed, again, this is a key area. And what we're aiming for here is an improvement in speed. The boost is length is only 20 seconds, so I think it's all about escaping with speed and probably by climbing at the same time to get away from your opponents. We've got a rating of 72 here, which is a 9% increase overall. Let's see what the detail is. Cruise speed has gone up by 37 miles an hour, and there's still more to come, of course. 9.9, very nearly 10%. The maximum boost speed has gone up by 35 miles an hour, very nearly 8%. Very nice to have. And we've lost a couple of seconds of boost. But as I say, in this particular case, the boost is already short compared to some of the other heavies. I want speed to escape from them, not a long boost length. And just another reminder, we've got a good climb rate coming up, which we'll look at in a moment as well. And maneuverability, some small effects here. We've managed to pick off bonus characteristics, which have improved the rating to 40, which is nice. We've got the turn rate down very slightly. But in all truth, although these things are nice to have, these are not going to significantly change the way that you fly the aircraft. And finally, altitude performance. We've managed to improve it by 1. Why? Because you can't change the altitude figures. But what I have done by using the boost injection mixture system is improve that already very good climb rate by another 36 feet per second, which is 8.5% very nearly, which really does mean that with the speed that we've managed to gain with this build and the climb rate, which we've managed to improve, if you are surprised by an enemy heavy, probably your best tactic is to fly upwards and away from it. Okay, so that's enough about numbers, enough about builds. Let's go and see how the aircraft performs in battle. The map for this battle is Northern Bridgehead. It's the Valhalla variant, and it's a 5-sector map with the sectors laid out in a very squashed 5 spots of the die configuration. I think this is one of the most interesting maps in the game. Centrally we have a forward airstrip, so tactically this is important because it allows easy access to the other sectors, and that's doubly so because you can actually spawn here. That's all you can do. You can't get a different aircraft, and you can't repair your aircraft because this is not a repair base, but still that's very valuable. On one axis we have a pair of make-weight garrisons, but on the other axis we have the 2 strategically important sectors, and they're not the same. One of them is a military base which will fire rockets every 20 seconds to try and flip other sectors to your team, provided your team don't die there. We've all seen that. And I think this is the stronger of the 2 strategically important sectors, but on the other side we have the command center which releases bomber flights which will attempt to do the same thing. And the way to win this map is to hold, I believe, at least the military base for longer than the enemy. Try and deny them the forward airstrip and hold your local garrison. If you can also get the command centre, then you're in a very powerful position indeed. If you can't get hold of the military base, then probably you're going to need your local garrison and the forward airstrip and the command centre, and you're going to have to probably at some point take the garrison over here as well, because the military base is more than likely to flip at least one of these 3 sectors to the enemy team. So this makes this map a real challenge, and it's also very fluid. Often games can swing to and fro in terms of advantage. Let's take a look at the order of battle. I'm top tier in my Zwilling, and I have for company just 2 other players. It's August, people are on holiday, a Tornado and a specialised XP-55. The enemy has a bomber. If I find that over a strategic sector, particularly the military base, that's going to be a priority for me to dispose of. He'll want to avoid me at all costs, so he may very well choose to do something interesting with his aircraft. We'll see. The Yak-1M, highly manoeuvrable, so also good for contesting the centre, but not particularly heavily armed, and then also another specialised XP-55. So this could be a very fluid battle indeed. We could anticipate, for instance, that this forward airstrip is going to change hands several times in the game, making it at times easy to get to other sections of the map and at times difficult. Let's see what actually happened. As we enter battle, let me mention that this is a natively recorded replay file, not one of World of Warplanes, so the reticle is going to be on target, but you might find the movements a little bit more jerky. Now, as I discussed in the strategy and tactics section, I consider the military base to be the most important of the sectors here, so that's where I'm going. Gaining altitude initially, I'm going to be looking for the air defence heavies, and then with a bit of luck I'll have some trade coming in from the enemy team that I can also deal with. Also got the option of using the ordnance. This bomb will certainly take out a gun emplacement, and at this sector, since I can't really use it to destroy the special object, probably that's what I'll do. So we spot both of the heavies more or less at the same time, choose which one's coming towards us, and put the effect weaponry to work, and immediately you can see a lot of damage done to that heavy. Swing for the second one. Pretty much flew past me. You can see that first air defence heavy was very nearly taken out in that volley. Get onto the second one, demolish that. Now we can finish off the first one. That's gone too. There's nothing else going on in here at the moment, so it's time to use the bomb. So pick off a gun emplacement. Perfectly placed. That should take out the gun emplacement, which will give us another 20 points. And now I'm looking for something else to do here, and I see a ground attacker. I see 2 ground attackers. These will probably do the job. And as I go past that, on my first pass you can see I removed probably over 50% of the health of that IL-10. Indeed it was. And now I finish it off, and that secures the base. Time to clear up. There's another ground attacker here. Let's go and deal with that. Once I start landing the shots, you can see it's melting away. And that's a high hit point pool aircraft. Now we've got a fighter coming in, and unwisely, he's going to choose to go head on. That did not go well for him. And now we've got a Focke-Wulf, and even with its mighty weaponry, I wouldn't mind going head on with this. As it happens, it's flying away from me, begins to evade. Put in some deflection shots, good ones. Got the lead right, and as you can see, All but about 25 hit points were taken away in that volley, and now we finish it off. And while looking around, I can see that we have 3 sectors to 2. We've just flipped the airfield, so what I said in the strategy and tactics section is applying. The airfield is swapping hands. See a ground attacker coming out of the airfield, obviously spawned before we flipped it. And these 430s make very short work of it. It's now seriously damaged, come in for the second pass, and I will certainly kill it very quickly. Down it goes. We've very nearly got the command centre as well, so we're in a good position. I've already racked up 7,000 personal points, and so far so good. My team is supporting me by taking other sectors, and I've got this sector under control. Now we're going to look to see what else we can do. And a ground attacker is coming in from the spawn, is almost dead. Keep an eye on the heavy, but I can see that's going to die anyway, so I can come for the ground attacker even though it's being attacked by a fighter. And I pinch the kill. It's my job. Leave it to me. Now the airfield looks like it's about to fall, so I begin to consider whether I can go and try and help take another sector. I see the XP-55 ahead of me, and I think I glimpsed the Yak 1 as well. They're attacking a multi-role. Let's go and see if we can help that multi-role. As the XP-55 comes into range, I can see it's very badly damaged. He lasts no time at all, and the Yak 1M lasts almost no longer. And we flip that sector to establish a lead of 4-1. Looking back towards the command centre, sorry, the military base, of course. I haven't seen the human bomber so far. If ever he was to make an appearance, if he saw where I was, this would be the time. And like magic, there he is. Well, unfortunately for him, I have come back to the military base. He's got no friends, so this is probably not going to go well for him. Nice volley, and the second volley finishes off the bomber with ease. Turn to see other threats. Mosquito. Don't need to go head on with that, but as it goes by me, I do put a couple of shots into it. I can probably outmaneuver it. Turns out to be a slightly tighter thing than I expected. The second volley sets it on fire. He's already lost his engine. It should be an easy kill from here. And it is. I spot a ground attacker below me. This is one of my primary functions, to take out the bombers and the ground attackers. So I manoeuvre into position behind it. We already know from what I've already done in this game, it's not going to last very long once I get it within range. Full burst, I flip underneath it, but in fact it blows up just as I go underneath it, and that was the Hero of the Sky badge. It was also the Maguire medal. The other ground attacker is conveniently in position, and that lasts no time too. I love it when a plan comes together, as they used to say on the A-Team. Everything has gone in my favour here. Now ascending to try and get the bomber. And he's turned away. Was that just to evade the air defence aircraft, or is he trying to evade me full stop? I've got very little boost left, but I'm now up at the kind of altitude I need to be. And the bomber makes a critical error here. He turns. Well, he's got a mosquito on his tail, and now I can put some shots into him as I pass. And even with that partial burst, I still removed something like 35 to 40% of his health, and now I can finish him off. There's a fire. Just managed the gun slightly. Haven't had to do that very often. Down he goes, and that's the Winged Legend. And at that point, my team establishes superiority. Holding onto the military base has brought the enemy to its knees. The Yak 1M comes towards me. Now, he's learned a bit. He starts weaving, but then critically he straightens up. And it's an easy kill. P-47N. Not quite as manoeuvrable as that, but now I've damaged its wing, I can stay on its tail very easily and kill it. And there you can see total domination of the military base led to victory, 17,000 personal points and a whole host of medals. Nice game. Let's review the outcome of this battle. We see from the centre that it's a 5 chevron battle, grade 1 heavy fighter. That grossed 101,586 credits, or silver if you prefer, and nearly 34,000 of that came from a premium account bonus. If we look in the message box, we can see there are no expenses. The aircraft wasn't shot down, so no repair expenses, and I was using prepaid consumables as usual. This was the first win of the day, so aircraft experience is 5,739, the base 2,251, premium account bonus and other bonuses are on display there. For experience, 230 with 56 of that coming from the premium account bonus. 5 tokens, these were all for first medals of the day: Marseille, Maguire, McCampbell, Winged Legend and Hero of the Sky. And if we turn to the personal score tab, we can see that all 3 of the class specific missions were complete, therefore the 5 chevrons, 17,010 personal points, just a couple of sectors captured, 17 aerial targets destroyed, exactly the number required for that Marseille medal. Damage to aerial targets of very nearly 8,000, 7,993. 29 critical hits, not surprising with those 30mm cannons. Didn't lose the aircraft. Capture points of 580, split 360 for defending, principally the military base, and 220 for attacking. And also destroyed the single ground target at that military base at the start of the game for 3,003 damage. Team score, easily enough for first place. That would have been on either team, both by personal points and by chevrons. I think we had some newer players in the game here, just learning their aircraft. Now it's time to bring this video to a close, and the Bf 109 Z Zwilling is a true air superiority heavy fighter featuring heavy armament, good speed and good altitude performance, and I think we can agree that I have really built it for destruction. Well, I hope you found that helpful, and if you did, you'll come and see my future content, but until then, this is the Noble Q, signing out.